You're listening to Wisdom of the Ages, the show that taps into the many expressions of universal, ancestral, and personal wisdom to ignite evolutionary consciousness.
Hello, this is Ayn Cates Sullivan, one of the Superpower Up hosts, and you are listening to Wisdom of the Ages. So, are you ready to lean back into the wings of wisdom and be carried by a higher source? And if so, you will love the show today, because we will be exploring love between the worlds and how goddess symbolism can be found all around us. So before I introduce my guest here, I would like to begin with a wisdom quote from a novel by Iva Kenaz called The Goddess Within. And it goes like this: your shadow can be used both for good or bad. It solely depends on the intention. If your intention is ill, the shadow eventually overpowers you. But if it's kind, it can actually support your light. So with that lovely quote, I would like to introduce you to the author and one of my most favorite people on the planet, the mystical Iva Kenaz. She's an author from Prague, Bohemia, a city built on magic that I was able to visit recently, and I fell in love with it. It's an amazing place. Iva is a researcher of ancient knowledge and has written various metaphysical novels, including The Goddess Within. Currently, she's working on a new book about runes, so I hope we can talk to her about both. And The Goddess Within, I'll just tell you, you might want to pick it up. It's the kind of book I can imagine that young wizards at Hogwarts would be reading, or the priestesses of Avalon. So if you really like a little bit of a magical read, check it out. So Iva, welcome to Wisdom of the Ages.
Hi, Ayn. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here on your show.
I'm so happy you're here, and I absolutely love your book.
Thank you.
Just the whole idea that a young woman might fall in love with the faun in the other world is just fascinating to me. So, but before we get really into it, I just want to ask you. It's an unusual novel. It's a little different because you're in two different worlds, and I'm just wondering, how did this idea of a love story between a young girl and a faun, how did that come to you?
Well, I have always enjoyed the Greek and Roman mythologies and all these legendary beings that coexisted with the human race, and perhaps they still do in another dimension. But I've especially been curious about the half-human, half-animal beings, because they connect us to the earth element and to the ancient gods and the goddesses, which many of which had horns. And they were later demonized because they represent our animalistic side and wilderness, which was generally suppressed. But I have always found them fascinating, and especially the fauns, because the fauns were sons of a minor Roman deity called Faunus, who was a Roman counterpart to Greek Pan. And he represented the masculine fertile powers of nature. And the fauns were really funny beings. They were like these tricksters, but also wise teachers. And they often challenged humans and taught us about our connection to the earth and the plants and basically our wild side. So I have always found these characters interesting, and I like the idea of a love story between a mortal girl and a faun. And I guess I was also inspired by the archetype of the Beauty and the Beast, although actually in this novel it's the beauty who changes, not the beast. But all these things, they just all came together.
It's really pretty fascinating, and I love this idea that fairy, like this realm of fairy, it's not a demonic place. It's actually a place where we can find our wholeness, where we can actually find true love.
Yes, yes. I believe that these that there are these dimensions, and that there are these ethereal, pure beings that just want to avoid this harsh reality that we live in, and so they are in this world. And I believe that if we are chosen to go there, we can actually permeate that reality and start coexisting with these beings.
I love this. I love this dance between the time and place that we're in and this other place, the timeless place, the place of dreams, and the idea that we can possibly dream consciously with them, that our realities maybe in this day and age are starting to move more into alignment. Maybe we're coming back into some kind of fairy accord, some kind of full alignment. So
Yeah.
so the main character in your book is Berkana, and I believe that's after the goddess rune. So do you want to explain, just introduce the runes, just a little bit about them?
Yeah. Okay. The runes are an old Germanic alphabet that was brought later to Britain and Scandinavia, but they are probably much older. They're a much older writing system because, for example, there are some similarities between the runes and the symbols of Bronze Age Europe. Some of the runes are really similar to these symbols. But what I find most fascinating about the runes is that they don't only offer divination, but they are also magical symbols that help us manifest and heal, and they open our consciousness. And this goes hand in hand because, for example, if we pull a certain rune, it doesn't only offer us advice, but also the possibility to draw in the rune's energy and actually attract the possible outcome of what we desire. So we can actually do that by visualizing or drawing or chanting the runes, or we can also do runic postures, which is kind of like a runic yoga, they call it. So there are many ways to work with the runes, but their power is really intense, and it manifests almost instantly when we work with them.
Oh, that's absolutely fascinating. So I've got to take a break here for a minute. So Iva, where can people find out more about you and your books and your Audible stories and your sacred geometry cards?
Yes, I have a website, ivakenaz.com, and my books are available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and all the major online retailers.
Okay, so this is super. We're going to take this short break, and then we're going to talk more about runes and love between the worlds. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Hello, everyone. This is Tonya Dawn Rekla, Executive Director of Superpower Experts, and we want to thank each of you for making Superpower Up the #1 podcast network for personal development and spiritual growth. Because people like you have the courage to say that mindfulness, healthy living, disrupting reality, the pursuit of consciousness, responsible entrepreneurship, and radical parenting matter, we now amass over 1 million downloads monthly in more than 90 countries. Our numbers keep growing because there are far more people willing to live divergently than mass media wants to acknowledge. For you, the change makers, the light bearers, the way showers, we say thank you. If you're ready to take the next step in your evolution, go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the Superpower Quiz. And as Neva Lee Rekla, our youngest podcaster, likes to remind us, remember, we all have superpowers and we can change the world.
So we're back, and you're listening to Ayn Cates Sullivan, host of Wisdom of the Ages on the Superpower Up Podcast Network, the #1 podcast network for personal development and spiritual growth. So Wisdom of the Ages is a show that taps into the many expressions of universal, ancestral, and personal wisdom to ignite evolutionary consciousness. And you can find out more about the show on Wisdom of the Ages, superpowerexperts.com. So today we're talking with magical author Iva Kenaz. So welcome back.
Hi.
So I'm fascinated. I'm absolutely fascinated with this connection between the goddess and the runes. Can you tell me some more?
Yes, well, the runes relate to the goddess in many ways. But for example, in the Norse mythology, the runes are carved into the tree of life by three goddesses, which are called Norns. And they are timeless beings. They're actually giantesses who also spin the destiny of the worlds in the tree of life. So they are in charge of the destiny and the past, present, and future. And they have been compared to the three fates or the Celtic triple goddess, or also the three mothers of the Kabbalah, and so forth. And so the runes are in the hands of these powerful goddesses. But each rune represents a different part of the world's mystery. So there are god runes as well as goddess runes, and there are runes of healing and abundance and so on. And in my novel, the main character is called Berkana, after rune Berkano, which is the rune of the birch tree. And it represents the white goddess of the woods. And it's also a rune of rejuvenation and harmony and protection and love. So it actually encompasses all the themes of the goddess within novel. And that's why I picked this rune. And it's a crucial rune in the story as well.
That's so lovely. And it interfaces also with the Celtic tradition, with the Irish ogham, with the birch, as the white lady of the wood, and the one that you would evoke when you're beginning your quest, when you're ready to go and discover who you are. So that it's an interesting interface there.
Yes, so, I think they're quite connected, the rune and the ogham.
Yeah, I believe they are. And so, I'm more familiar actually with the ogham, but the how would you say that the runes guide us?
Well, in many ways, basically, mainly they guide us through nature. They're very connected to the tree of life. So we can often see runes in nature, especially in trees. And when we learn their language, when we learn their symbolism, we can notice them for example, when we take walks, we notice them in the trees or in the grass stalks or on the ground. And they're amazing. And once we learn the language, they deliver symbols. So if we follow these symbols, we might find maybe what we're missing or what we should be working on. And they also help us in this process. So if we invite the energy of each rune into our lives, then we manifest their energy, and they become our guides, really.
So would you start working with the runes by, say, getting just ordering a set of runes, which they're usually, I think I've seen mine on stone, or usually I think they're on stone, aren't they?
Yes, I think it's most powerful to create your own set of runes. You can use pebbles, or you can use any material that comes from nature, so shells or pieces of wood, or you can even draw them on paper. But I think it's really powerful if you make it for yourself, because you put your own energy and you already start the process of working with them. So you align your energy with the energy of the material that carries the energy of the runes.
That's beautiful. And I know in the Om you would get your stick, you would get your stick of birch, and then you would carve the symbol on it. So this is similar, where you would find a stone in nature, and then would you paint it? Would you paint the symbol?
Yes, you can paint it, or you can carve it in pieces of wood, or you can draw it on a card, or you can. I think it doesn't matter how you do it, as long as you align your energy with the object that carries the power of the rune.
So would you say you would make yourself receptive? You would go out into nature in a receptive way, working with this one particular symbol, and then maybe start to feel the message of the symbol? Would that be a way to work with it?
Yes, because it's like a nature's alphabet. So if you learn how to read it, you can then write it literally, because you can inscribe the symbols, and use them as power tokens. So there are many ways, but I think that we are guided usually, once we learn about the runes, we are guided by the runes that resonate with us. So, for example, we might be seeing rune Urus, which is the healing rune, when we need to focus on our health and when we need to address certain issues regarding our physical strength or well-being. And then maybe if we need to focus on some new path, we would see Berkano, which is the rune of new beginnings or rejuvenation, and also healing and protection. So this is what I find most fascinating, that the runes show us the way, but they also actually give us the power that we can use to manifest things in our life and to make our lives better.
So I remember that you and I went on a magical walk in Bohemia, and we were at a very special place. A river was flowing through, and an old Celtic settlement had been there. And we were feeling a special energy, and at a certain point there was a X, which I believe is a rune symbol, that was right below my feet, and you stopped and you exclaimed, and how would you describe that?
There were actually two. You actually had two, and it was rune Gebo, which is it's a rune of divine protection, but it translates as gift, so it has been interpreted as gifts of God. So it's when you see this rune, you're given a certain gift, or it maybe points to a certain gift you already have, such as, I don't know, maybe some spiritual insights or spiritual gifts and qualities that you have. But it can also represent a connection either between two worlds or between two beings, or like any kind of connection or coalescence of two energies, but in a very harmonious way. So it has more interpretations, and it's for sure a luck rune. It's a good rune that usually foretells luck and spiritual insights and spiritual gifts.
I know the place we were standing in was a very, very powerful place, and I felt the presence of fairy. It was very strong. And I believe this work that we're doing with the goddess and so forth is, I feel like we are supported in making and reestablishing an accord and alignment with the fairy world as well as the divine worlds. We're more established with the worlds of the divine, I believe, but the fairy world has called to us so that we end this madness with this wasteland we've created here, and maybe we can start to create something new. And I believe, it really starts one book at a time, one message at a time, one rune at a time. As we become more conscious and we go, gosh, we really can live differently. We really can go get these runes. We really can speak to those in the other worlds and the in worlds. It's beautiful work. I really love what you're doing. So another thing, so we talk about the tree, the birch tree, and you talk about the tree of life, which is, now I'm familiar with tree of life more from a Kabbalistic point of view, but I believe also in the Nordic tradition, there's a tree of Odin's tree of life, correct?
Well, Odin ventures into the tree of life, but the tree of life is really a timeless tree. It's if we think about it, the tree of life is one of the oldest symbols that was reoccurring in many ancient cultures, and most of them actually tie to the idea of multidimensional travel. So the tree is like this giant organism that has all these realms and worlds or spheres of existence, and I think that it can be either viewed as a tree, like that we have certain realms in the crown, in the roots, and in the trunk, or it can be viewed as a sphere. So we would have like these layers of realities. There are many ways to look at it, but actually one of the depictions of Tree of Life was the six-pointed star, also called snowflake, because the shape resembles a snowflake. And this is the shape from which all the runes can be derived. And I'm talking about the Elder Futhark runes, because then there are other kinds of runes, like the Anglo-Saxon runes and the Gothic runes and these. So I mainly work with the Elder Futhark because they're the oldest runes. But yeah, so I think the Tree of Life is important, and also in Norse mythology, as you said, because in the Norse mythology, it's interesting because it combines the feminine and masculine. So the feminine is represented by the Norns that carved the runes into the tree, and they set the destiny or the fate of the world. But then the runes are brought to the consciousness, or to gods and men, by God Odin. So we could say that maybe the Norns represent the unconsciousness, and Odin represents the consciousness. So it's like the balance between the unconscious and conscious mind. And yes, I also think that the Tree of Life links to the idea of, these two powers of Mother Nature and the Green Man, which is its male counterpart, we could say. So I think both these are important in the Tree of Life and in the wholeness of the worlds and the realms.
I do really love this idea of also the Celtic Tree of Life and the four worlds there, where you have the roots, your connection to your ancestor, to the mother, to the fairy realm, the connection to the Middle Earth, our human world, and then connection to your guides, your guides, and all the people, the bards and the mystics that have come before you, and you can actually call upon their wisdom from those places. And then the overarching circle that holds it, circle of Sigant, which means that everything is included. So I love these old concepts, they're not judgmental, are they? They everyone and everything, every gender, every deity is included.
Yeah, and I also love it in the Celtic Tree of Life, how the roots and the branches connect. So it's like it kind of reminds us of the eternity of the tree, how it all connects and always flows.
That's so beautiful. Another symbol that you have in your novel that goes all the way through is the flower of life, and I believe that's also Burka's gateway to the other world. Do you want to speak about the flower of life?
Yeah, it's actually also connected to the Tree of Life, but the flower of life is another very ancient symbol, and it's basically a net of overlapping circles of the same circumference, and they're interconnected in their central points, and they create this kind of a web or a net that is circular. And this symbol can be found in many ancient sightings. And how it connects to the Tree of Life symbolism is because if we connect all the central points with straight lines, we get the six-pointed star, or the snowflake, which is the symbol of the Tree of Life and also the source of all the runes. And so in the novel, I incorporated all these symbols to weave the destiny of the main character. And I also see the flower of life as a kind of a well that keeps the ancient wisdom, but also as a portal. And that's what it is in the Goddess novel. It's a portal to the other world, to the world of the Fae, where all these ethereal beings live, and they're shielded from human destruction and wickedness, and they live there in their free realm. So it has more meanings, but it's like this well of wisdom, I think, or a portal to the other worlds.
Yeah, I really loved. Gis is such an interesting character. He's the faun, the Pan-like character, and Berkana, and how they really have to make an effort to get to know each other, because there's this, we wouldn't really call it a mist, but there's some sort of veil. And she goes into her temple, her grandmother's temple, where she's able to maybe raise her consciousness up enough, and he's able to somehow shift his dimension until they can touch. It's just such a lovely. It's
Yeah, I
it's a
call it
lovely.
the world beyond the veil. Yeah, it's kind of like, because I think there is just a thin veil between the worlds, and we are just so tuned into this world that we can no longer see the other worlds. But I think the veil is really thin, and we can connect to these beings.
It is interesting that I wonder what it is that creates that veil. That so many people that are just stuck in the five senses, and then when we start to work with these other realities, we have to realize, no, we haven't gone crazy, that there's a lot more, and we're only seeing a little tiny bit of the story. And then when we move into this mythic imagination, and we're able to actually enter consciously into the world of dreams, so now we're entering into a dream world, a conscious dream world, where all of these things are going on, and we go, oh my goodness, there really are fairies, there really are green men and fauns and the Norns. They're all these beings are actually here, and we can, if our intention is friendly, and if we promise no harm, and because they will test us to see what we want, but if we can actually make friends with these dimensions, and I believe it's good for us, it's healthy, and it's healthy for the world to begin to realize that that we live in a very animated, it's an animated existence here. There's a lot of things are going on, and there's no reason anymore for us to be connected to those things that really bring us joy.
Yeah, and I think also these worlds, they can come to us in our dreams. Like sometimes we can travel to them in our dreams, and then we think, oh, it was just a dream. But I believe it's out there. Maybe it's naive, but I believe it.
I think it's almost like we're in a time. I remember some Mayan priest said to me one time that the feminine voice had been removed from the planet and had been kept here from being here in full expression. It had been, I think it was 5,125 years is what they said. And if you go back to these ancient stories, that's about the time these stories start to disappear. And so we're linking back in time to the ancient wells, the hollow hills, these ancient symbols, to be able to pick up a thread that's really important for this time and healthy. And if you think about the ecological crisis that we're in, it's imperative, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. And what I found is, since we moved to the countryside, it was interesting for me because before that we lived by kind of a city forest, or like a large park. And there the trees, I found many trees that I felt very attuned to, and I could telepathically connect with them. And since we moved here, I've been seeking this connection. And what I found is that some of the trees, or most of the trees, were uninterested to connect. And then I realized it was because they just witnessed so much harm done by humans that they shut off the communication, because we began to see how much lodging is going on, and always seeing some garbage in the forest. And it almost seemed like the city people appreciated the little piece of nature they have there. Then the villagers who have it, they cannot take it for granted, at least in this area. So it was only once I started to clean up the garbage and take care of the area more, that I felt that the tree spirits opened up more, and then I could communicate better with them. And it was like they were testing me, really.
I think that's really true, that we can go to our, some people only have access to a park, but if you're really lucky and you have access to a nature, an area in nature, that you can go and tend it, and the trees will wake up. A lot of times they are sleepy, but if you can go and stand there and open your energy, and then you'll feel that symbiotic relationship. And I know so many people, the first time they feel it, they go, what? What's happening here? but there can be so much love in that exchange, and we do really need each other. In fact, it sounds like what would really save this planet is if we started planting trees again and tended these forests and really took care of nature, and we could probably just come back to symbiosis.
Yeah, I think it's really about the giving and receiving, that when we only take, we can't expect so much back, to be given back. So I believe that if we start giving also and working with nature, not against nature, then it just happens that the connection and conversation with trees and plants can occur again, because they will open up to us.
I think that's very true. In the Celtic tradition, that you have the well maidens who come up with their horn or their cup or their cauldron, and they offer the visitor a sip, and that's to give nourishment. It's what they really desire. And so when the person takes a sip, they're fulfilled in some way. Their desire is fulfilled. But in that tradition, if you take the cup, if you grab the cup and take it from the fairy, which happens, which is not very smart. If you grab it and take it, you can actually invoke a curse. They can get very upset with you. And on the other hand, if you're very respectful and thank them for this nourishment, for this cup, then you start to develop this deep friendship, and you can be blessed by the fairy realm.
Yeah, so it's all in the legends and the fairy tales, how we are kind of tested first, and then they see if they want to connect with us.
We have to earn it. It's just, it's not about domination over nature. It's really about working in harmony and agreement. Yeah. So, the other thing that I really like about your novel is that you have themes of light and shadow. So you have, and so how does this dance of light and shadow, this, how does that impact our strengths and our weaknesses? How does that impact our wholeness or the becoming of who we truly are?
Well, this could actually also be compared to the tree symbolism, because if you think about it, trees need light as well as shadow to thrive. So if there needs to be a harmony, because if there's too much light, it could burn them, and too much shadow would make them wither. So the key really is in balancing both the shadow and light. And I think this reflects in our psyche as well. If we focus only on light, then we might not be prepared to face the shadow side of the world, which is inherently here and is constantly testing us. And in fact, they say that the more light we take in, the greater shadow we cast. So I think it's quite important. And it's also important to realize that the shadow and light is also in us. And I think that's the hardest part, to incorporate the shadow. But I think that as long as our intention is not wicked, then our shadow can become our shield and not a tyrant. And that's why in my goddess novel, the shadow side of the character works against her, but also for her. And her shadow in the novel is stubbornness, which causes many problems. But then it also saves her on many occasions. So there becomes, like, she learns about how to balance the shadow and light and how to work with it so that it works in harmony and for her, not against her. And I think, sorry.
Yeah, just to follow on with that, it's really interesting. She wants to discover who she's becoming, but her grandfather really doesn't want her to find that out. Or her father, I suppose, doesn't want her to find that out. He's afraid that if she discovers her secret, I don't know, what is he afraid of? That she'll understand too much about herself, or that she'll be harmed by her mystical association?
I think it's this protectiveness of our parents, that they just want to protect us from the dark side of the world. But eventually, we learn about it anyway, or we are confronted with it. So I think I just wanted to show, how, because it's about a girl, it's a coming of age story. So it's about a girl growing up. And I think this belongs to it, that we are, stepping into adulthood and learning about things that as children, maybe if we are lucky, then we are not confronted with it. And I think it's the hardest time in our life because we are learning how to deal with it.
I think it's a story that I think I think men and women could both relate to the story, but particularly women, and I would think particularly young teenagers or young women, because there's some parts in the book where she's actually really focusing on her belly center. And she understands the power that's in her womb. And I don't believe I've actually read that in any other novel. I was really struck by that. And
really?
I think it's really beautiful for us to remember that, not to cut ourselves off from the waist down, not to, but that our pelvis, that our belly, that our yoni, that whole part of us really, really does have power, that it's important, it has wisdom. And then from that place too, if we're connected to our wholeness, the wholeness of our body, when we approach our partner, our lover, how different would that be? How, if you're coming from a place where you understand the power of your own sexuality, I think it's a beautiful gift.
I think it's also a healing. It's a center of healing and our strength.
Yeah, because in so many, well, I guess in some ways, sexuality has been so distorted and demonized. And one of the things that I love about going back into the Celtic tradition, and some of these other, the Roman and some of these other, and also the Greek traditions, is that sexuality, like Bacchian energy, is celebrated, and that we can learn with our bodies. I think that's so healthy.
Yeah, I think so too.
A great book, a really great book to give to young women who are stepping into that age where they're going to start exploring sexuality. And in this culture, there's so much about pornography and all this stuff, and how great to have the Norns, the goddess, the wise women saying, this is your strength, this is your power. Think about who you're giving your energy to. Think about who you're going to spend your life with. Think about who you're entwining with. It's love. It's really lovely. Good, really good job. I really appreciate what you wrote.
Thank you so much.
And then just speaking about that too, we're talking about goddess power, but how would that relate to men?
Well, this is very important, I think, to talk about this, because many people connect the goddess only to women, but we all have our inner god and goddess, and the fact that the goddess was shunned for many centuries, and in many cultures and religions, doesn't only affect women. The balance, of course, applies to us all, and I think that the goddess, I used to think that the goddess represented Mother Earth and Mother Nature, and that it was really like this feminine power. But I think it's more complicated, because if you think about it, there have also been masculine earth deities, such as the Green Man or Pan and Faunus. So I think it's more about the balance between both the earth god and earth goddess. And this reflects in us. And in the patriarchal society, goddess was abandoned, and that created disharmony, just like it would if we cut ourselves from the God principle. So I suppose, I think on the more archetypal level, the God and the goddess represent the marriage between the unconscious and conscious mind. So that could be the sacred marriage, or the hieros gamos, as the alchemists call it.
One time, I don't know if you know this woman, Amachi, she's a hugging saint. And I was with her, and I asked her, I asked her if God was a man or a woman, or if God had any gender. And she thought about it for a minute, and she said, well, God doesn't have a gender, neither male nor female, but if God had to have a gender, it would probably be more female.
Okay.
I just had to laugh. This is coming from the Hindu tradition, but I just thought that was lovely, and it turned
Yeah.
everybody on their heads, So,
Yeah.
so I have this question for you. Do you think we really can truly love between worlds?
Well, I mean, I have never experienced it, at least not to my current knowledge. So I don't know if I can answer that, but I kind of experienced it through my heroine when writing the story. So it would definitely not be an easy romance. But I think, we have many legends and mythologies that describe these romances between mortals and deities or otherworldly beings. And there are also more recent stories of people disappearing into some other worlds, usually through the caves or rocks. And, they spend maybe a whole lifetime there, and then they come back having maybe started a family there, and then they're all confused. I know there was this story in Iceland of some doctor in the 19th century. He just disappeared, and then he came back, and he had no connection to the world anymore because he spent such a long time on the other side, or so he claimed. And I don't know, this always fascinated me, this idea, of this world being multidimensional, and I am very attracted to the theme of impossible love, or love against all odds. So I suppose that's why it's a reoccurring theme in my novels, and that's why it inspired the goddess also.
I love that. I do love this, and it does appear. This story does appear over and over again. And the story of Rhiannon, for instance, in the Celtic world, and so there probably is something to it. I imagine there are many loves on many levels and many dimensions. So that your readers, if they go get the book, then who knows what will happen to their dream worlds and their worlds of love. So I see that your book is scheduled to launch February 2020 with Infinite Light Publishing. So you've shifted to a new realm, it sounds like, with the publishing world.
Yeah, it's really exciting for me because it is a big shift, and it's a shift from being self-published to traditionally published, and it is a big step for me. And the novel will have some new illustrations and new graphics, and it will also be available in hardcover, which it hasn't been so far. It has been only in paperback and ebook version or Kindle version. And there are also slight changes to the story, and it was re-edited for the American audience. So there are many changes, and it's really exciting. It's really exciting for me.
Well, I can hardly wait for it to come out, and I imagine it's going to be a massive success. So I look forward to it, and hopefully when you finish your book on runes, you'll come back onto the show and tell us about the runes.
Yeah, I would love that. My mind is full of runes at the moment. So,
do you want to tell us? Just give us a little quick taste on the rune book before we conclude.
Yeah, sure. Well, I've been working on it for quite some time, but what I wanted to, because there are so many books on runes, so I really wanted to focus on the practical side of how we can benefit from working with the runes, and how we can attract them into our lives, and how to read them when they deliver messages through nature and through the trees. And I also focus on the goddess and god, so on the Norns and Odin, and on the tree of life and how it relates to the runes. And then I suppose I also, what's a bit different than the other rune books is that I approach it really like a well of wisdom. So I don't follow any scheduled guideline or any, like usually there's set of the runes, the Elder Futhark runes are split into 8 groups. 3 runes of 8. Of 8 runes, and I really wanted to approach it as a well, and so I write about the runes more randomly because I approach it as this well that is, by the Norns, by the giantesses, and and the well from which Odin picked the runes and perceived them. So I just wanted to approach it more freely, and I also channeled part of the book with the Norns. I really wanted to connect with the Norns and with Odin, and just I'm taking my time with it because I want it to be as good as I can write it, I suppose.
Goodness, so what would it be like? What is it like when you tap into the energy of the Norns, these ancient giantesses? What does that feel like?
It's I feel great power. I mean, it's something like you're tapping into some archetypal form of existence that is timeless. It's beyond the here and the now. You know, it's beyond the timeline that we are used to, and I just feel like it's something really powerful and grand, and I have a big respect for it. And I think there's a great wisdom coming through it, and I think the runes really connect us with these ancient powers, these archetypal powers that create the world. Or it's really powerful. I don't even know how to describe it really.
But I'm almost sensing it right now, just talking to you. I feel them. I feel this ancient wisdom that really wants to come through, that wants to help us and assist us in some way. Just he's like shaking us. Wake up, wake up.
Yeah, I think it's like this, this sacred language or sacred alphabet. And it's really exciting when you tap into it, that you can communicate to these beings.
I'm going to try it. I'm going to try to make my own set of runes and see what happens.
Yeah.
I'll write you and let you know what arises if the Norns come to speak to me.
I would love to hear about that.
I would love it. So is there a practice that you can share with me and the listeners today? Maybe something that we can try?
Yeah, well, maybe regarding the magical symbols and the runes, I think it's just so beneficial to pay attention to them, especially if they keep popping up on your path, because sometimes, we see certain symbols and we maybe don't know what it means, and maybe they keep coming back through synchronicities and other signs. And I think that it's really important to pay attention to it if this happens, because they really are a universal language, and we can learn so much from these symbols if we know how to read them, and if we invite them into our energy field and let them help us and guide us. And one can easily connect with them in nature, in the woods or in the parks, through trees and branches, because they really are everywhere around us. And it's only up to us if we open our hearts and mind to them, if we become conscious of them.
So if we've gone to your website, it was ivakenaz.com. If we go on, I think there's some sacred geometry cards or some images that we can look at there so we know what we're looking for when we go for a walk.
Yes, I have a few articles, and I have the cards, and I also have a few videos on YouTube on the runes in Flower of Life and about magical symbols. So, yeah.
Okay. I also love the 3 stories that you tell that are on your website when you click on there, because you're also a filmmaker, aren't you?
I studied screenwriting.
Yes.
So I wouldn't call myself a filmmaker, but I was into screenwriting before I started writing books. So yeah.
I loved these animated stories. It's a lovely way to go and get a taste of your fiction and what you because you've written quite a lot, so it's just a nice way to get a taste. I was showing my husband. He was loving them.
Yeah. I'm glad you like them.
Yeah. So but could I read another little piece by you from The Goddess Within? A favorite part here. And then we'll conclude with this. But I really like this passage. And I think it sums up what we've been discussing on the show. Okay. So it goes like this. You've done it, child. You've experienced the seed of life and the tree that grows from it. You've finally attuned to your roots and found the strongest ones, those you will thrive on. Now it's up to you in which direction you decide to branch, what you decide to receive and give out, what your goddess wants to nurture and cradle. However you decide to live, please don't forget about what makes that seed grow. Strive to find balance and understand imbalance as well. For to harmonize disharmony is deep knowing, but respecting the purpose of both is wisdom. Just remembering to take in and harvest light, yet also allow yourself to cast shadows where needed, like a tree. Then in return, your shadow will support your light. I love this. Respecting the purpose of both is wisdom. How profound.
Thank you. I'm glad you liked it.
Really, really lovely. So, well, exciting. I'm excited to read this book again, and also your rune book, and for the many things that are coming. You're such a talented author. So,
thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and we've run out of time, but I hope you'll come back on the show again.
Yeah, I would love to.
Okay, so to find out more about Iva Kenaz, visit her website, www, that's 3 W's, ivakenaz.com, IVAKENEZ.com. So thank you, Iva, for your wisdom, and thank you to everyone who has joined in as well. May your lives be filled with magic and the beauty of the other worlds. You've been listening to Ayn Cates Sullivan, host of Wisdom of the Ages. To review my books, reserve a private session, or to find out more about Infinite Light Publishing, visit AynCatesSullivan.com. So, until we meet again, may wisdom reveal its secrets to you, one story at a time.
Are you ready to discover your superpowers? Go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the superpower quiz today.